Now, 1989, the end of the 80s horror film era. The Toxic Avenger 2 and 3, filmed back to back, directed by, Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers, the Troma team. So, classic Troma here. They are slight guilty pleasures of mine. I mean, they are pretty trashy films, but what I like about these Toxic Avenger films is that they are pure schlock. They're indie, they're out of the studio system, they're quite controversial, they dare to take risks and go there. They're very rude and crude. They don't take themselves too seriously. They are very tongue-in-cheek, they blend comedy and horror quite well together. They're a little bit meta as well, in that sense, a little bit ahead of their time in the sense that they know what they are, they know what they're trying to say, and they're very open about it. There's no beating around the bush with those films, and the outrageousness is what makes them fun and appealing to me. They dare to push the envelope a little bit further than other more studio constrained 80s movies, which is why I think they stand out. Yes, their quality lacks a bit in comparing to some of the other classics I have spoke about and said, but it makes up for it in its outrageousness of content and dialogue and humour. And you know what? They are really in your face with practical effects and gore. They are madness, but they are a little bit more Power Rangers cheaper side of things, which is a bit of a charm. That's what makes it a bit of a guilty pleasure. You know it's a budgeted, schlocky film, but it has that charm where it's like a backyard production. It's very DIY, and that comes across, so that the passion comes for it. I know it's got its fans and it's built a very big cult following over the years. I'm interested to see the remake. I think they've gone a bit of a different direction there, but they will never let 80s films die, will they? How many of these 80s classics have been retold and come to the big screen, and usually they're not as good. So they got it right first time round. I mean, they are the kind of films, the Toxic Avengers, where they are what they are. I don't really think they can be improved, because it is that backyard DIY rawness is what makes it. So if you take that away and change the situation there is made, I don't think you're going to get the same fun achievement as what you got with the originals. So I look back with fond memories of watching those, and to be honest, they are some of the cheaper, stupider productions to come out of 80s horror, but do you know what? They've stood the test of time. They're knocking around on 4K and Blu-ray and still being viewed by a new audience more than ever, and it's great to see that. Now, carrying on talking about 80s classics, 976 Evil is a bit of an underdog. It's one of those films that is a cult classic but rarely comes up. You don't hear a lot of people talking about that. I mean, the film is really fun because it's directed by Freddy Krueger himself, Robert Englund, which is really cool to see an 80s horror slasher icon directing his own cult epic. And it has all the tropes that make an 80s horror film fun. So, it's got crazy, cool practical effects, which still hold up, There's some cheesiness to it, but it looks good. There is just mad, chaotic scenes in there, which, do you know what? It's a product of its time. 976 Evil really is the 80s summed up in a way, because they don't make them like they used to, that's for sure in that case. It's got great monster effects, fun gore, really over-the-top crazy sequences, and it's got all the tropes, you've got all the stereotypical characters. It looks like an 80s film. Literally, I think if you would type in 80s movie AI, that sums it up. The costumes, the looks, the characters, the stereotypes, that film has it all, which is actually a really cool thing, because it was 88, it was the end of the 80s era of slasher, so that was a nice kind of round-up send-off film for that. So I actually think it is underappreciated and underseen. It's had a nice Blu-ray release in the UK from Eureka Entertainment, a nice collector's edition, but it is definitely one I recommend, and I mean, it's unique. It's directed by Freddy Krueger.